Hello, this is Hwansan. Once again, whatever is on our minds, whatever we're doing, let's put all of that down right now and let's enter into meditation together. Please assume proper meditation posture, whether you're sitting on a meditation mat or on a chair. Now let's enter into preparation breathing together. So together, inhale through the nose and fill your chest. Hold. Then exhale through your mouth. Once again, inhale. Hold. Then exhale. And then now, without interruption, let's enter into abdominal breathing together. So inhale through your nose, gently and slowly, and push out your lower belly. Inhale. Pause. Then exhale and pull in your lower belly. Okay, once more, inhale. Hold. Then exhale. As we proceed in our abdominal breathing, as we settle into our posture, our bodies will feel lighter. Our breathing cycle will become longer and softer and feel more natural. And now, let's enter into Imoko, the Hwadu, the question that is the object of our meditation. We will combine that now with our abdominal breathing and say it out loud on the out-breath. So inhale, hold, and then together, Imoko. Imoko. This. What is this? What is this that directs my body? When I think a thought, what is it within me that generates that thought? When I feel an emotion, such as joy, what is it within me that delights in that joy? When I feel sadness, what is it within me that feels the pain of sadness? When someone calls my name, what is it within me that recognizes the sound of my name and diverts attention to the caller? This is what we're asking ourselves. And when we ask ourselves this, we ask with a mind of intense questioning. Don't worry about trying to generate an answer. Just create a mind of questioning, the mind of wanting to know the unknowable, to perceive the imperceptible. And when we do this, we will feel blocked. We will feel stuck. And that is the mind of doubt, what Sun Buddhists call doubt. It is the state of mind that we try to produce and maintain in the course of meditation. Once again, together inhale, hold, and then together, Imoko. Why don't we try it one more time out loud? Together, inhale, hold, and then together, Imoko. And now, from now on, until the end of today's program, please continue to hold this posture, to conduct abdominal breathing, and to ask ourselves the question, this, what is this? Imoko. And create within our minds the unknowable doubt, the great doubt. And continue to meditate as we consider today's topic of contemplation. Now, in the last few years, during which I've been meeting with many Korean students and international students, there is a question that keeps coming back, and that is the question of passion. So many of our young people, and not just our young people, middle-aged people, elderly people, at a certain point, and at certain points in life, we feel that we're just going through the motions, that we're not really living with intensity or passion, and we begin to worry that maybe we're not living life in an authentic and genuine way. There's an old American saying that we have to have fire in our belly. But so many of us at times feel just lukewarm inside, feel a little disfocused or even empty and hollow. And we're just kind of following along the stream without really knowing why we're doing that. And at those times, we may ask ourselves, what happened to my passion? What happened to my intensity? Is it possible for all of us to live with passion, or is that just for the chosen few? Now, I would like to argue that it's possible for anyone to live with passion, to live with intensity, but not all of us do, because living with passion requires effort, it requires knowledge of how to do it, and it also requires courage, I believe. One of the mistakes I think that modern people make is to think that passion is some form of emotion, or that it's a form of energy, emotional energy. You know, like fire, like heat, like electricity that we expect to be flowing through us all the time. Now, from a Sun Buddhist point of view, that kind of thinking is considered erroneous, because all emotion and even energy are considered temporary phenomena. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if we are relying on certain types of emotion to give us passion, what we'll find is that we will somehow find a way to create that emotion and try to sustain it, but inevitably it passes. And so we go through this process of trying to reawaken that emotion over and over again, and going up and down, enjoying it when we feel the flow of emotion, and worrying, becoming filled with anxiety and disappointment when that emotion inevitably settles down. This, from a Buddhist point of view, is both inefficient and wrong-minded. It's a very awkward use of our mental faculties and resources. And what I would like to suggest today is that passion, that we ought to think of passion not as emotion, not as energy, but as conviction, a sense of conviction. And when I say conviction, I mean having a deep sense of purpose, being very clear on what our purpose is in living, and having no doubt about it, and being completely committed to it. In order to have that kind of conviction and commitment, we need a clear and thorough understanding of our most precious, our most core, our most fundamental values and beliefs. And when we have this understanding of our core values and beliefs, then we can build goals in our living, and these goals will guide us. Now, one of the problems that I think many people, especially young people, have when they are trying to construct their life goals is that we unconsciously create goals that will help us become the kind of person that we think we should be. We think that these goals should change us, that when we achieve these goals, we will be changed from one kind of person to another kind of person, from an undesirable kind of person to a desirable kind of person. And so we formulate these goals with the hope of changing ourselves. And what happens is that we feel like we should achieve these goals, and we should be something different than what we are. And what will happen then is that these goals will begin to feel burdensome to us. They'll feel like a kind of imposition that's being pushed on us from outside, even though we may have been the ones who formulated these goals. This is sometimes called, in the self-help culture, this is sometimes called the tyranny of the should. I should be making this much money at this age. I should be having this level of position in my company or organization that I work at. I should have done this much by now. I should be this kind of person. I should look like this, talk like this, be able to do these kinds of things. And when we make goals like that, what we're actually doing is alienating ourselves. So these kind of goals, I do not believe, are natural expressions of our convictions and our values and beliefs, even though at any given moment we may think that those are our beliefs. What I would like to argue here is that the goals and values and beliefs that we come up with should emerge naturally from an encounter with our own selves, with the conditions of our own living. In other words, our conviction and the values, beliefs, and goals that follow upon that conviction should come from self-knowledge. We need to face ourselves as we are, not as we fantasize that we should be. True values, goals, and beliefs come from who we are already, not who we wish to be in some, fantasy that we have of the proper way of living. And if we want to know who we are, we need to know how to observe ourselves in a very precise, deeply penetrating, and objective way. Now, of course, at this point, we can introduce the use of meditation. Meditation brings us into ourselves, makes us look at ourselves, and particularly in Sun Buddhist meditation, because we ask this question, what is this? What am I really? Who am I really? As we travel deeper and deeper into our own consciousness, we will gain that self-knowledge. Now, I may speak of this as if it's an easy thing to do, but actually, looking at yourself clearly and objectively, the good and the bad, the things that we're proud of and the things that we're ashamed of, is no easy thing. It actually takes great courage. When we encounter things about ourselves that we don't like, the natural common response is to try to deny it, to try to not pay attention to it, and to try to cover it up or make excuses for it. It's very hard, supremely hard, to look at ourselves exactly the way we really are right here and now. And so this is why it's difficult to arrive at genuine conviction and the passion that emerges from that kind of conviction. Now, what I would like to suggest here is that our sun meditation can help us, can give us the courage to face ourselves. Courage in this sense is not a kind of boldness or daring. What I mean by courage here, what I would like to suggest is the courage that comes from knowing the skill of emotional self-regulation. This is one of the natural skills that we develop when we practice meditation. And the reason why it's helpful here is because when we see something of ourselves that we don't want to confess to, that we're ashamed of, or that we feel guilty about, or that, frankly, we just don't like, we can use our meditation to regulate those emotional responses to our own self. We can use the meditation to just let those disturbances in our mind pass by. Likewise, when we see something that we like about ourselves, we can use our meditation to let those feelings of being pleased with ourselves just flow by. Don't let them turn into vanity or pride or conceitedness or narcissism. So we face both the good and the bad within ourselves with objectivity and equanimity, calmness, clarity, and stability, and through that we gain self-knowledge. Once again, this is no easy task. And because it's no easy task, I would like to introduce as another tool for gaining the self-knowledge that we need to arrive at true conviction, another tool which is the Buddhist teaching of karma. Now, often in our modern culture, we think of karma as a kind of destiny, but that's not the sense in which I want to introduce the word karma today. And it's not like affinity, getting along with certain people as soon as you meet them and not getting along with certain people as soon as you meet them. It's not that kind of thing either. I would like to address the issue of karma in its original meaning. Karma originally means action, behavior. And in the modern context, I would like to say that karma is habit. Habits of thinking, habits of emotional response, habits of action and behavior. A habit is an action or a thought or a feeling that you repeat so many times that later it just becomes automatic and unconscious. And this is what karma is in the Buddhist context. And the reason why this is helpful is when we look at ourselves in terms of karma, habit, rather than traits, rather than attributes or characteristics. We can look at the sum total of our mental and physical operations as a vast array of habits that repeat over and over again. The reason why this is much more helpful is because if I look deep within myself and I see, oh, I can be mean, or I can be petty. I am mean, I am petty. I'm a liar. This is trait thinking. This is assuming that we have these fixed, permanent traits about us. And when we say something like that about ourselves, we will feel a sense of hopelessness, because we'll think, this is just the way that I am. This is just the way that I was born. There's nothing I can do about it. But think how this sounds when we look at it in karmic terms, in the terms of habit. I have a habit of saying mean things at times. I have a habit of thinking in a petty way at times. I have a habit of doing these things. This is a much more empowering way to think, because habits can be changed. They are our own actions. They are not fixed things about us. We can choose to do them or not do them. When we look at ourselves as bundles of habits, we can now think of the possibility of self-transformation. In this way, we can use both meditation and the Buddhist teaching of karma to help us in our path in coming face to face with ourselves and with the reality that we live in. And the reason why this kind of true encounter with our own selves and the conditions of our own life leads to values, goals, and beliefs is because when people know, when people figure out where they are and under what circumstances they happen to be in, they will know what to do next. It's a natural response. When I know where I am, I know where I should go. When I know what kind of situation I'm in, then I know what to do next. In this way, our sense of purpose emerges as a natural response to our clear, objective, immediate perception of the reality of our own selves and the reality of the world that we live in. This purpose is a natural expression of our being. It's a natural reaction of our consciousness to the experience of life itself. It is who we are. This purpose is a natural expression of who we are, and the values and beliefs that emerge from that purpose, those too are simply who we are. And in this way, our conviction, our understanding of our beliefs and values make us more of who we already are. We're not trying to change ourselves from one kind of person to another. We are simply trying to lay claim to who we already are. We will become more of what we already are. And in this way, through conviction, we can call conviction another word, and that is harmony. We come into harmony with who we are. We come into harmony with the part of the world that we happen to be in. And in that, by coming into harmony with things, we join the natural flow of life. And this natural flow of life is the true energy of our passion. Not just a momentary burst of emotion, not just a mood that we happen to be in. So this is from my perspective, this is a more Buddhist approach to finding our true passion, finding our true conviction. Our true conviction and our true passion must emerge from our natural, authentic identity. It's not something that we just put on. Once again, it's not something that we should do. It's something that we already are. Now, this is a very theoretical explanation. And in actual real life, what we often find is, even if we do find our true conviction, maybe you know, things have worked out very well for us. So we do find our true conviction. You know, we release our natural passion. We formulate goals. We follow our values and beliefs. We may even get a job that allows us to pursue our true goals. Even so, there's something about human nature that no matter how good a job you have, no matter how much you enjoy doing something, because enjoyment itself is an emotion, a temporary emotion, eventually that enjoyment fades. And we find ourselves getting bored. We find ourselves getting distracted, no matter how much we believe in what we're doing. So this is something that will happen to us, to most of us, even when we have a true deep sense of conviction. And what I would like to introduce now in our very real, authentic encounter, or our very real challenge of generating conviction, is another Buddhist practice. Now, in Buddhist temples, there is a practice of repeating the Buddha's name over and over and over again. And what that does is it embeds the thought of the Buddha deeply into our consciousness so that the thought of the Buddha is with us at all times. It is a reminding of ourselves, a constant act of remembering to ourselves what is most important. And this is ritualized in religious ceremonies within Buddhist monasteries. And perhaps the most important daily ritual or ceremony that's performed is the daily performance of the so-called veneration of the Buddha ceremony, which typically takes place very early in the morning, usually around 3:30 a.m. This is the first thing that we do when we wake up in the morning. And although it's considered a religious act, it's also a very, very smart, commonsensical thing to do. As soon as you wake up in the morning, as soon as we wake up in the morning in a Buddhist monastery, we immediately remind ourselves of why we live, why we choose to live, what we are here to do. Every single morning, we literally recall for ourselves out loud the purpose of our lives, the things we've set ourselves to do. Now, in this day and age, maybe not all of us live in Buddhist monasteries, but this is something that I would very strongly like to recommend as a daily practice, that every morning get up and recall for yourself as clearly as possible what your true purpose is, what your true values and beliefs are, what your true goal is. A lot of people already do this. They put post-its on their mirrors, they have, messages on their cell phones and reminders on their computers, and I think that's very good. But imagine doing this at a much more powerful level of consciousness. Imagine doing this as taking a sacred vow, a sacred promise that we make to ourselves and renew to ourselves over and over every day and every morning. This will help us keep us on track. This will help us keep us moving in the right direction. All forms of meditative practice, all forms of religious practice are basically acts of remembering, recalling to ourselves over and over again why we're here. We literally do this even in sun meditation. With each breath, we ask the most important question in our lives, the question that we're here to answer. What is this thing that I call me? We can use this approach also in our daily living to get us through our lives as well. This is meditation in the truest sense of the word. Meaning, when we try to remember something, when we try to recall something, what we're really doing is we are returning the focus of our attention back to where it belongs. What's happening when we feel like we're losing passion, when we feel like we're losing conviction, what is simply happening is that we're paying attention to something else. We have allowed ourselves to be distracted by something else, and therefore, because our attention is not on our natural purpose, we begin to experience a loss of energy and focus. So the natural thing to do at that point is to return our attention to where it should be. For a sun meditator, that's the hwadu and the state of doubt. And for us who live our various lives in society, our personal purpose in life will be something different for each of us that we have to discover on our own. Now, I'm talking about this as if it's a step-by-step procedure, and once we have our conviction, then we can do this as if it's a linear progression forward. But the truth is, finding our true conviction, finding our true purpose is a lifelong process, one that we'll be doing for the rest of our lives. We do it with patience, and our conviction and our purpose grows and changes and deepens as we do. So this is a practice that we can undertake throughout our lives. And when we feel ourselves going off track, then we use the Buddhist practice of remembering, of recalling, of bringing back our attention to where it should be. So this would be the Buddhist approach to generating conviction and passion and living with intensity. Now, I can see, members of our studio audience kind of nodding along with what I'm saying. And perhaps our viewers at home are resonating with the teachings that I'm sharing on tonight's episode. And maybe, you know, we may feel this resolution within ourselves to you know, make a change in our lives and live with passion. And what many of us experience is that we've done this before. We're always trying to get up. We're always trying to, you know, grit our teeth and, you know, re-energize and live with passion again. What we find is so often we go back to the same old habits. It's hard to get up. It's hard to move forward. We constantly, you know, just for maybe a little while we may think of changing, or we may attempt a change in our life to live with passion, and then suddenly it all kind of fizzles out. And one of the reasons for that is that when we want to undertake growth and change in our lives, the natural habit for many of us is to visualize all the wonderful things that will happen if we can just do these great changes. You know, if I change the way I eat and exercise, I'll look different, I'll have more energy, I'll do these other things, and then I'll, you know, maybe I'll change this in my life and that in my life. And we visualize all these wonderful things, but at the end of the day, we don't really do anything about it. And we wonder why. Is this because I'm a hypocrite? Is this because I'm just an armchair dreamer? And I don't think that that's actually the reason for most of us. I believe that the reason is because we don't realize that we're already used to living in a kind of status quo. We are already used to living in this sort of lukewarm state, this state of not being passionate. We are already adjusted to it. And the only thing that will make us change, because we've in a sense learned how to live with it, the thing that will make us change is if we feel that we are tangibly being hurt and harmed by the way that we are living. And this is the next sort of teaching that, or piece of, or suggestion that I would like to share, and that is you need to calculate the damage that we are inflicting upon ourselves when we live without conviction and passion. We need to know exactly what we are losing, what we are denying ourselves, what we are wasting when we live this way. And if nothing else, we can, you know, if I were studying harder, if I'm a student, I would go to a better college. And then I would probably have a better chance at getting a better job. We lose that when we don't live with passion as a student. If I'm working in a company, if I'm not living with passion, if I'm not doing the best that I can, then I am losing opportunities at promotion. I am losing opportunities at building my self-confidence. I'm just floating around, taking up space, and maybe one day one of my competitors will push me from my position. We need to be very aware of what we're losing when we live like this. And maybe no thought comes to mind. Maybe, you know, it's kind of comfortable where I am. Maybe I just happen to be lucky that I can just live like this and no one says anything and no one does anything. Nonetheless, even if you're comfortable where you are, we are losing one very precious thing, one thing that cannot be replaced. Almost anything can be replaced. If you lose money, most likely you can go out and make it again. Even if you lose someone that you love, you can go out and meet someone again and again find someone you love. But there is one thing that is truly irreplaceable, and that is time. We are losing time. Time that we could be living well. Time that we could be living very meaningfully and productively and with great intensity and conviction and authenticity. We are losing the time of our lives. Now, some years ago, there was a study done where this psychologist interviewed a sample of elderly people who measured very high on scores of life satisfaction and happiness and sense of meaning and general mental health. And they were considered a great success as far as you know, people who have lived long lives go. And these people were interviewed for their insights and for their wisdom. And it was a very, very large sample of people coming from all different cultures and all different parts of society and all different kinds of personal background. And amazingly, they often said almost exactly the same thing. And one of the things that they said is that the greatest regret in life is not failure, it's not defeat, it's not making a mistake, it's not doing something terrible. All of those things we can forgive in ourselves. All of those things we can recover from. The thing that we truly regret when we get older is not having done what we wanted to, not having done what we believed in. The greatest regret, of course, is the life that was never lived. So this is the damage we do to ourselves when we choose not to face who we really are, when we allow ourselves to be lost in fantasies of who we should be and who we could be, and maybe who we one day will be if we could just get up and get started, and then we postpone it. This is what can happen to us. This is what is happening to us when we are not on our true path. In Buddhism, by way of conclusion for today's talk, in Buddhism, when we confront ourselves and when we confront the world around us, Buddhists consider that the most important facet of our lives is the fact and truth of impermanence. We do not live endlessly in these physical bodies that we currently have. We have a limited time in this world. And according to Buddhism, the way in which we respond to the universal condition of impermanence will determine the kind of life that we have. If we ignore it, if we try to hide from it, if we deny it, we will experience life as a constant state of dying, of things being taken from us, of us being reduced over time. If, however, we choose to embrace it, face it, confront it, and try to come up with our own solution to it, then we experience this impermanence as living. That we experience impermanence as something that forces us to live. And so I think that this is a question that has relevance not only for Sun Buddhist monastics, but for all human beings, no matter what our age is. The reality of impermanence forces us to ask whether we're 18 years old, or 28 years old, or 58 years old, or 78 years old, or even 88 years old. The reality of impermanence forces us to ask, what will we do with the time that's given to us? What will we do with the life that remains to us? What shall we live for when we know that our time on earth is limited and it's also unpredictable? This is the question that we need to ask if we want to live authentic lives of conviction and passion. So I would like to close today's talk with a quote from a pretty famous movie called The Shawshank Redemption. And I think the quote is very resonant. In the movie, they tell us, get busy living or get busy dying. And from here, we will now take a short break, and when we come back, we will answer our viewer questions on the inner voice. Hello again, and welcome to The Inner Voice. This week's question is from a viewer named Ira-Masriana. Ira-Masriana is a 42-year-old mother of two living in Jakarta, Indonesia, and she works helping children to realize their inner gifts and talents. And some of our viewers may recall that on our first episode of this year, we actually answered a question from Ira. At that time, she sent in an audio tape of her question asking about how best to approach the problem or the challenge of educating her children. And I provided a reply to that. And afterward, she sent me privately an email saying that she had seen the program and had heard the answer and that she had found it very helpful. And she thanked me for it. This week, she has sent us, this time, a video recording of herself asking a question regarding her sun meditation practice. So why don't we all take a look and listen to what Ira has to ask us about sun meditation practice.
Hi Sunim. My name is Ira from Indonesia. I have a question regarding sun meditation. I know two other meditation before sun meditation, which is they focus on the heart. And my question is, why sun meditation focus on belly breathing, while brain do the work and heart, the one who feel pain and joyful? Are there scientific explanation about sun meditation? Thank you, Sunim. Bye.
Thank you, Ida, for your question. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. And you've raised several issues, so I will try to go through them one by one. The first question you ask, well, you mentioned that you've tried a couple of other forms of meditation, and ones that focus on the heart. And then you ask why we focus on belly breathing. And I would like to clarify very carefully that actually the focus of sun meditation is on the hwadu, imoko, specifically the state of great doubt that the hwadu is intended to raise. The belly breathing is intended as a support system to help us concentrate on the hwadu. And we also perform the belly breathing to protect our health. One of the dangers of meditation, especially in sun meditation, is when we ask a very intense question like that to ourselves, we can experience what's in Korean called sangi, which is translated as elevation of chi energy. What happens is that by focusing on the question using basically our heads, it forces the energy of chi to rise to our head and can cause all sorts of problems for us. It can cause us to have headaches and throbbing. It can make our face red, and there are all sorts of painful and uncomfortable symptoms that come along with this condition of elevated chi. So by performing belly breathing, according to tradition, we focus the energy of chi in our lower abdomen and keep it centered there, so that this problem won't occur. So that's the traditional explanation of why we do belly breathing, as a way to support our concentration and as a way to protect our health. Now, you mentioned that the heart, why do we focus on this when the heart is actually the center of our emotions and so forth. But the truth is, in Sun Buddhism, our emotions and our thoughts are actually manifestations and expressions of what is called the true self, our Buddha nature, also sometimes simply referred to as the one thing. The thing within me that sees and feels, perceives and thinks. This thing has no physical form. It cannot be reduced to a mental phenomenon or a physical entity, and that's why we use meditation to practice on it. That's why we perform the hwadu. So this is something to be very careful of, that our physical organ, the heart, or even the metaphor of the heart, is not a complete description of what happens in meditation. We are creating the great doubt to become enlightened to this unknowable true self that has no real name and whose form cannot be drawn. Finally, you asked for the scientific basis of sun meditation. And I'm very glad that you did, because I believe that this addresses a great need within the field of Buddhism specifically and meditation in general. There is a tendency in modern spiritual culture to refer to all forms of meditation, all so-called spiritual practices, as if they're all the same thing and confer the same benefits. As if you do one form of meditation or another form of meditation, and they'll give you the same benefits, like lowered blood pressure, or inner peace, or improved digestion, or greater immune system. Now, it's true that many forms of meditation provide similar benefits, like the ones that I've just named. But I think it's dangerous and presumptuous to lump them all into one category that we call meditation. Each is a different form of mental and physical cultivation. Whether you practice yoga, or tai chi, or qigong, or Korean sun meditation, or vipassana meditation, or some other form of cultivation that's out there, each form, each practice will produce its own unique effects, will provide its own unique benefits, and will have its own unique dangers or problems that it might raise. So I think that when Ida asks a question like this, she puts her finger on the next stage, the next step that we need to take in this modern global culture of spiritual practice, and that is we should undertake scientific research in each field. Now, I do know that, for example, practices like yoga, vipassana, and certain forms of Tibetan Buddhism have been very, very well studied with modern scientific technique. But unfortunately, Korean Sun Buddhist meditation is not yet well known within the world and has not yet attracted the attention of large numbers of scientists. So I would like to take the opportunity raised by Ira's question to suggest that scientists ought to study the particular effects of Sun Buddhist meditation as well. This is something that I think that Korean scientists should start with because Sun meditation right now is most well preserved within Korean Buddhist culture. So this is something that I would very much like to suggest. The truth is, Ira, that we don't know the scientific basis of Sun Buddhist meditation because it has not yet been properly studied. But hopefully we will one day know, and we will one day be able to conduct our meditative practice in conjunction and partnership with modern science. So thank you, Ira, for raising a very important issue, and I hope that my replies to you are helpful to you, and I invite you to submit more questions in the future. Thank you again. So once again, in closing, I would like to thank the members of our studio audience for participating in today's program, and also our viewers at home for meditating with us today as well. Thank you very much. And once again, in closing, I will extend the traditional Buddhist greeting, may we all attain the Buddha. And now once more, please assume proper meditation posture. Resume our meditation, and with 3 strikes of the bamboo clapper, we will enter into our closing session of Sun meditation.